It all started because I wanted to live somewhere on the coast, and I started looking on the Florida coast. And when I got to this area called the Forgotten Coast, I thought, this is really great. This is exactly what I've been looking for. And I thought it was really beautiful, not developed, not too many people around, pretty low key. I found just the property I was looking for, a wide lot and deep with lots of palm trees and pine trees, and it was just exactly what I had hoped for. Who would believe you could be so well situated right on the Gulf of Mexico? Now I needed to start looking for an old house that I could move. Something interesting, but old and affordable. And there's a place called the Raw Bar where everybody congregates and drinks and munches and mainly gossips. And beside that, there was a big sign that says, "No trespassing." Well, what are you going to do when you see a no trespassing sign and there's nobody around? You're going to go check it out. And so I went, and it was all grown up around it. So here I am behind the Raw Bar. I saw this big "Do Not Trespass" sign, and I went down this road, and sure enough, back down here was the house back in the woods. And the house was completely deserted. And it was packed full of old magazines, papers, non-collectibles collected. And I knew right after I saw it, oh boy, this is the greatest house, I gotta move it. I found out who owned that house, and it turned out to be somebody locally. I told him that I'd like to buy the house, and he said, well, let's sit down and discuss it. So we went to the Raw Bar. It was in the middle of the day, and there wasn't anybody in there. And I made my first offer, and he just pushed back from that table. And I said, oh no, wait a minute, don't push back. We're not finished yet. And so I made my second offer, which I thought was a pretty good offer. And he pushed back again. And I said, no, this is not over. And then I made my final offer. And he said, it's a deal. So that was it. I thought, well, I'm going to get Ducky Johnson, because I had heard that he was the best house mover, to move the house. And I called around, found out that he was staying in a trailer down here near the beach on a vacation with his family. And I went over to the trailer and knocked on the door, and here came this man out with his skivvies on and an apron, wearing an apron. And guess what? It was Ducky Johnson. I thought, oh my God. I'm giving my life to this man. Anyway, Ducky Johnson turned out to be the world's greatest house mover. So we cut the house in half, and we had two parts. He loaded it up on two different trucks, brought it right down the road from the Raw Bar, and they came down the road with my house and moved it over to the beach. It took about an hour. I couldn't believe this was happening. It was the greatest thing. I loved it. And then went through a long process of raising the house up, putting it on the pilings. That was a real tricky thing, to see your house go swinging across the pilings. They had to be very careful when they put the two pieces of the house back together. You can see where the joint is when you go through what is now the Tupelo Ballroom. Used to be the dining room. And the joint's right there, and it's great because it makes you happy when you realize, oh, this is where the two got put together again. Needless to say, there was a lot to do with the house. It had to be painted inside and out. Most of the windows were working, so that was great. But the floors had to be refinished, and I put real bathrooms in, 3 baths, and we had a lot of work to do on the fireplaces. This house, I think, has great fireplaces. It's got 4 fireplaces in the front part of the house. In this case, it's an old wooden fireplace with a great mantel on it, and we tiled around the side of it and on the bottom. This is probably the only fireplace that's refinished that I would ever try to start a fire in, and I'm even a coward about that. I decided that it would be great to have marble counters in the kitchen, so I went looking all over the place for marble, and finally I was in Atlanta, and there was a federal building that they were about to demolish. It had the most beautiful pink marble on it. And so I went to the demolishing company and asked them if I could buy the marble, and sure enough, they sold some to me. And that's the marble that's in my current kitchen. This house is very interesting architecturally. It's an old-style Florida house. It has a long 100-foot porch on the front, and then porches wrap all the way around the house. At the end of the front porch that overlooks the water, there's a swing, and that swing has been there for many, many years. It's the greatest thing to sit on that swing and sing. You can't swing in that swing without singing. And I've sung to all of my grandchildren swinging in that swing. Just great memories. One of the most visited parts and favorite parts of my house is the piano bar that's on the back porch. My friends had an old piano at their house and they didn't want it, and I talked them into giving it to me. Then my friend Jack Dakota came along. He asked me for the keys of the piano, and I thought, well, yeah, it doesn't play anyway. I might as well give them to Jack Dakota. And now I keep that bar stocked all the time. And so I literally turned it into a piano bar. It's the real McCoy. Now I've been living on the Forgotten Coast for 20 years, and I don't regret a day of it. I love this house. It's wonderful. It accommodates kids, grandkids, friends, the whole thing. And I think it was the perfect place for me to end up.